aspect of our Torah. Uh, One of the major events that happens in this week's parsha has a lot of major events, but one of the things that go by and we might miss it is the story of the midwives. That Pharaoh gives an edict and they ignore it because they're more worried about facing Hashem, or facing God, than they are about what Pharaoh could do to them. And this is something that we have to bear in mind. This is the beginning of the redemption. The fact that the midwives refused to obey Pharaoh. It also says something is any dictatorship or any government, if their laws are ignored, it means they have no power. We're all familiar with the famous story of Andrew Jackson moving the Indians west, right? That the Trail of Tears. I'm quite sure many of you know about this, where Jackson gave the order to move many of the Indians west of the Mississippi. And there was a Native American who was an American citizen and took him to court, went to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court ruled against President Jackson. Chief Justice Marshall ruled against him. And Jackson famously said, Justice Marshall has made the law, let Justice Marshall enforce the law. Meaning, I'm moving the Native Americans, I'm moving the Indians. He ignored the, what? Never heard of a president ignoring. No, but the thing is that this taught the Supreme Court an important lesson. That when they make a ruling, then they have to be sure it will be carried out. That's why many times they won't hear a case because they know how they're going to roll and they know it will not be followed. So rather than making a ruling that will be ignored, they will not make a ruling at all. It doesn't mean that what's happening is right. It just means they know they'll be ignored. Just as many rabbis will not make certain rulings, not because of any other reason than what they want will be ignored by the Jews. And here, though, we see especially a dictatorship, when, as Egypt was under the Pharaohs, it was not a democracy. They didn't vote for a legislature. Pharaoh did. He was a absolute monarch. Pharaoh did whatever he wanted. He gave this order to the midwives, and they ignored it. And later on, we see that even his own daughter ignored his laws, because she saved Moshe. The important lesson here is the worst thing you can do to a dictator is ignore his laws and to obey God rather than the dictator. I'm trying to remember the quote by Thomas Jefferson and Benjamin Franklin that obedience to God is fighting tyrants. And you have to be, first and foremost, you try to obey God and let the tyrant you'll deal with the tyrant later. But this was the beginning of the redemption, because later on, because of this, Moshe was not killed, and Pharaoh's daughter, saved Moshe. Something to think about.